The world is changed. I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth. I smell it in the air. Much that once was is lost, for none now live who remember it.
Oh man, how's it going, everybody? Welcome, we're back. And I've just got to say that I thought of that yesterday, and I'm like, worst case scenario is Twitch says I can't use it, and I'll just trim out the beginning, but I needed to put it in the stream. So I thought it was a great idea. I try not to give myself pats on the back too much, but I'm gonna give myself a pat on the back on that one. So we'll try to use that tomorrow, so long as Twitch doesn't have a problem with it. All right, I'm joined by Andrews tonight. So over here on, I guess, on this side, which would be my right, left, however you guys are looking at it, is Andrew Block. Andrew, I gotta say, man, those cards that you made, I think you underestimate how good they are. They're awesome.
Thank you. People have been enjoying them all over the country, West Coast and East Coast.
Yes, all the
West
coasts,
Coast,
covered
East
even
Coast.
across the seas. And on my right over here, which I'm pointing left, is Andrew Lippens, aka Pim! Exclamation point Pim. Get yourself a pretty dope painted ship.
Please
Just
don't.
make sure you don't have the Chicago post office run it over.
I've got too many things in my backlog. Don't buy anything, please.
Yep. So be sure to buy something, is what he's saying. He's like, I need you to buy as many things as possible, is what I just heard. So, thank you guys both for doing this.
Yeah, no problem. Excited.
The world has changed. Things are different now. And we've only had a few days to really break down or even look at, play, and talk about, man, has there been a lot of talking about the new X-Wing.
I haven't heard any discussion.
There's a new X. I made like this sly comment earlier, like, is there a new version of X-Wing? I'm so over it. Someone made like another comment about, AMG, and I was like, I wasn't aware that there were any changes made to X-Wing. What is this?
I did see someone in the subreddit recently. Someone joked about like X-Wing 3.0, and someone's like, "There's a 3.0," and it's like, no.
Yeah.
No.
And I called it X-Wing 3.0 in the intro. It's 2.5 according. I respect AM. I even called the stream 2.5. I changed that last minute. It's really semantics, and that's it. Don't get caught up in it. Don't argue about it. It's a waste of your time. And ultimately, I think Greg just mentioned that because there's a lot of significant fundamental changes, that calling it 3.0, as long as you have okay intentions, isn't terrible. Like, I don't have a problem with it. So it's just semantics. Catherine, thanks for the sub. 22 months. Oh my gosh. Nick and the Andrews, what a sexy crew. Wow. Catherine. I think we're all blushing now. Thank you. Yeah, man. So Atomic Mass Games kind of just hopped out one day and was like, here's everything. Just everything. Here's the link to the page, which has and they're like, by the way, squad building is different. Like, it's all different. And I think that was probably what blindsided people the most, was because we were already playing with a couple of modified rules they talked about, road, obstacles. I think some people, I know Greg was demoing bump focus rule stuff. And then they're like, by the way, 20-point squad building, loadout points, everything is different. Everything.
I described it earlier as they threw like a flashbang inside the X-Men community, and we're still trying to like get our bearings afterwards.
Yeah,
and that's the vibe I'm getting of like, you look at something and it's like 20 points. Wait a minute. Okay, wait, that all fits? Like,
yeah, it's like, what?
Gonna take it back. All right, yeah. I guess that's.
Oh man.
Nice.
Yeah, so I think we're all kind of coming down from this storm, this high or low or whatever. Maybe some people are coming up from a low. But yeah, I'm gonna call, so you guys know, when I say Andrew, I'm gonna be referring to Andrew Block, and I'm just gonna call Andrew Lippens Pim from now on, because it's otherwise going to be who are you talking to thing, and it's be like, who's on first, what's on second. It's gonna be a whole thing. So All right, Andrew, what did you think? What were your initial first impressions, like, you know, within a couple of minutes of reading all this stuff? What was your take on it?
My first take was that everyone else must be wrong and that you can't build 300-point lists. That makes no sense.
It's like we're talking about 20-point lists now.
That was honestly what I thought. I was like, hey, these loadout points can't be free. That doesn't make any sense. That was my initial reaction, but I also, you know, I've been playing for 6-ish months. I think I started going to the game shop regularly right when the most recent points change happened, right when the Harrahs got very expensive, because I brought a list to the game store that was then illegal at that time. It was too many points.
Yeah,
and
love it.
So that's when I started playing kind of more seriously, and I guess I'm treating this as an open book, and that the game is fundamentally different, and so whatever happens, I am supportive of it. But there is that little heartbreak where it's like, so I haven't played for that long, but for the last 3 or 4 months I've been playing, I was playing Luke, Leia, and Ahsoka. When you play that list, you have, I think I had 7 cards on the table, and I had a 200-point list. Like, I had 7 total cards, and that's totally different their philosophy now. And I loved flying those ships because it was simple. I could sit there and focus on where do I want to be, where does my opponent want to be, and it's a very different spot we're in now. It's not just about where you want to be; it's about how do you get your objective caps and what are all the upgrades that I now have for free. But I'm trying to embrace it and enjoy it. I've played 15 to 20 games of objectives so far, and aside from those couple of games where you realize you're going to lose and you have no chance of winning a couple rounds in, they've all been pretty fun, and ultimately they all feel like excellent.
And we're gonna get to that. So real quick, guys, what are we doing here tonight? So what I decided to do, I asked these two to join me, and basically we're gonna hop into TTS. We're gonna go over the scenarios, and we're gonna just kind of give an overview of how you do it without actually playing a game. And then we're gonna talk about like our impressions, what our favorite things are, what we dislike, and we're gonna try to be constructive. I am figuring out how much I like or dislike this still. I definitely was on I really am not liking this train for a while, and at this point I think no matter what, like, I'm here for you guys and I still want to play and have a good time, but ultimately I feel like there are bigger fish to fry than whining about things that are out of my control. It is what it is. It is what it is. So let's just roll right into the scenarios. Why not? So let's hop into TTS really quick, and let me pull up Chrome. There we go.
I just want to point out to everyone that he asked Andrew what his thoughts were, but not me.
Well, we're gonna talk with you about it too, but you already said some stuff, so it's trying to balance the room, you know. Obviously, that's how it works. No, it was on purpose. Was what I'm gonna say. Let me make sure Chrome. Where are you, Chrome? There we go. Awesome. Okay, so let's. This is just from Atomic Mass Games. I'll just link this right now in the chat. If anybody wants to read along with us, or you just read along with us by watching the screen that you're already looking at. But if you want to have a reference, there it is. So 4 scenarios introduced into X-Wing. Obviously, casual play, you guys can opt to just do a dogfight. But if you're going to any sort of structured event, this is what you are going to be playing. They are like, here is how the game is going to go. Standard, straight up dogfight is gone. Instead, we're going to place, I don't even know, like, in a lot of ways, I see objectives as incentives. It's another way to, like, frame it, I feel like, because it is incentivizing people to go to certain places and to not do what some people used to do, which is to hide in a corner or go back and forth down the board edge. Now you cannot. If you do that, you just guaranteed, like, it's over. You might as well not even play. So the first scenario is assault on the satellite array. I'm not going to go into the placing object stuff yet, and we'll do that in TTS because it is wordy, it is a lot, and I don't want to confuse anybody, because when I first started reading this, I handed the paper to my opponent and said, you figure it out, because I was really struggling. I'm like, I think I'm very confused right now. So You take control of the satellite array before enemy forces do. So this is a single objective game, correct? There's just one objective in the center. That's
Right.
the center
think-
satellite array.
No. This is wrong. This is 5.
Oh, okay.
one-
I'm thinking of the.
You think of chance encounter.
Got it. Okay, cool.
I think this one to me is the easiest to grasp, other than chance encounter, which is obviously just a dogfight with an extra step.
Mm-hmm.
I think this one's pretty simple, because it doesn't require any actions to do anything.
Got it. Right. This is about like having more ships, right, than your opponent near.
Yeah,
0
it's
to
like
1
any
of
kind of, and any game you've ever played where it's like not King of the Hill, but like a control point kind of thing. That's what we've got going on.
Got it. So actually, let's just, as I go through this, let's just set this up. So as we jump into Tabletop Simulator really quick. Oh man. Oh God.
That caused chaos.
Dear Lord. As we jump into Tabletop Simulator really quick, let's first move all these amazing ships out of the way that a certain Andrew placed. And you guys are going to be
I'm going to suggest as well that we change the map, because of the objective's a little hard to see if we put it over here by the Death Star.
Go ahead and change it to whatever Matt you want to change it. And
I'm
also,
just trying to
speaking
get
of
something
Matt,
this little
Matt B,
right
hello. Sorry, I did not respond to your in chat for a second.
difficult, busy.
Let's definitely not do one of those.
That's definitely not that one. Yeah.
Terrain, yeah, the terrains are pretty rough.
Sure. If no one objects to the lens flare, it's probably works best.
All right, so this says place obstacles, right? So you guys would you would do road first, right? After
Yes.
placing the center obstacle, or
we'll place the center
objective.
one.
Yeah,
Is there an easy way to place the center one, Andrew? Do you know?
you can I think you right click it. It says
Yeah, I
place
think there's
objective.
something I'm not familiar with it yet, though.
Yeah, here, let me see it. I remember seeing it on the note card. So you go right click there and hit place objective, and then it places it for you.
Beautiful. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So now after this scenario, we would go ahead and do the road roll. So Andrew, let's grab some dice. And these.
This is assault at the satellite array. If you guys are wondering what we're doing, we're kind of walking through how you set this up.
That is you, my
Hey,
friend.
Alex, how's it going?
Yes. You start putting it on your opponent's side, right?
No, you start with your side, then your opponent's side, I think.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so here we go. So at the start of the plates obstacles step of setup, you place one satellite in the center of the play area. It's centered at range 4.5 of the board edges, which is center of the mat, which we just did. And then starting with the first player, players take turns placing the remaining 4 satellites at range 3 of the center satellite and beyond range 2 of each other satellite. The first satellite placed by each player must be placed at range 2 to 4 of their board edge, and then the second set is placed on the opposite side. Must be range 2 to 4 of their opponent's board edge.
And I know this isn't very exciting to watch, but I think we as a community are missing how extremely important this is.
Oh, for
The
sure.
list construction and the types of ships you're flying have a huge impact on where you want to stick it. And it's unfortunately AMG didn't produce like a map for us, but you have a lot of space to put these objectives in. Like you
Gonna
could
change
put it
them to the red side.
in a lot
there,
more
really.
space than you expect you could.
Yeah.
That's one thing that Fly Batteries actually posted on their Facebook page was like, or someone posted on their Facebook page with a good map of you can see all the area you can place these
Mhm.
objectives, and it is pretty open. And like Andrew said, I mean, it's just like any turn zero play. It's going to take time to learn. Same way obstacles go.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
All
As
right, so
guys
you
are-
got that one there.
I'm gonna switch back to our camera really quick. You guys can see everybody. Again, I'm joined by, if you guys are just hopping in, got Pim here on my left, or yeah, I'm just gonna say it's on my right. On my left is Andrew Block. Both Andrews are here to go through the newness of X-Wing, showing us how we're setting up assault the satellite array.
It's range 2 from the other obstacles, right? Are there other objectives
It says range 3. Of
from the other objectives?
Yeah, 2 to 4 of the board edge.
Okay.
but at range 3 of the center satellite and beyond, and beyond range 2 of each other. So range 3 for both center and the other.
And to clarify some terminology, at means it is inside, and beyond means fully out of. So it has to be fully on beyond range 2 of another, but it could be within 3 and 4 of another obstacle, because at just means part of it is in it.
Vince,
So is it?
people are going to develop better strategies for objective deployment in conjunction with their lists. I would say yes. There aren't a ton of places you could put it, but there is some variability for sure.
So you can put this directly. Am I mistaken that you can put one directly here?
You can, yeah, as long as it is beyond
Yeah,
range 2.
that should fit right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's something I've seen no one do in online play, is put it in the middle. Like, everyone's putting them in the corners because that's how we're used to placing
And then
things.
they close pin
It
in the
is.
center.
Yes. And that's not necessarily good for, like, if you're flying 4 Arc 170s, which would be a reasonable list, you want that as close as possible because you want to get your mid bases, you know, you want to be able to grab 2 at a time. That's one more thing I think we forgot to mention. A medium or large size base counts as 2 ships in this format.
Right.
And you can pretty easily get between range 1 of 2 of these if you have a large base.
All right, this one needs to be on my side now, Andrew.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, just as they're finishing setup, how does this scenario work? So, scoring wise, every single scenario that AMG introduced, once you hit 20 points, the game ends. The way of scoring is fairly uniform. As every round you score a point per objective that you have. But for this specific scenario, again, this is assault at the satellite array. The way you score are each player earning mission points equal to their opponent's deficit, which isn't going to happen. Usually the list will be built up to 20. If somebody has a 19-point list, then you have a point to start the game. And at the start of the end phase, each player earns 1 mission point for each satellite under their control. A player controls a satellite if they have more ships at range 0 to 1 of the satellites than any other player. It's important to note, too, when determining control of a satellite, medium and large bases count as 2 ships. So not only do they take up more space, but they're worth the space because they count as 2 ships, not just 1. When a ship is destroyed or removed from the game, the opposing player earns mission points equal to the squad point value of the ship. So Wedge is 6 points. If Wedge is playing Assault the Satellite Array and Wedge dies, 6 points is awarded to the player that killed Wedge, to the opponent of the person playing Wedge. So the 2 ways to score points is the satellites, which is the incentive to go to specific parts of the map, and the other way is to just bloodbath it, and I think we've seen a lot of that so far. We'll talk more about what we've noticed and kind of the way the games go in a bit, but we're just going to start with rolling through the scenarios, and then so after we do this one, we'll talk about what we like and dislike about it.
So I'm kind of finagling something here on with these bomblets. I think Andrew's caught on already. There's no way to queue a range 1 bubble on these objectives yet in TTS. You can check it. They have an internal check, but they don't actually show a visual. So I'm using bomblets here to kind of give us a visual on where these circles overlap and everything.
Very helpful for sure. They'll update that, I'm sure, pretty soon.
Yeah, I'm positive they will. Like I said, they already do a check. So in a game, you can still you can easily right-click check range 1, and it'll tell you who has more ships and all that stuff. I'm sure Flipster and his team are working on it.
Oh yeah, Flipster's the best. James, if you have auto updates on for your workshop content on Steam, it's already updated for you. This is I haven't been on TTS since any of this happened. This is actually my first time on TTS since, and it was already there for me. So
I'm gonna circle the ones I placed really quick. A nice little yellow circle.
Nice.
And then Andrew, you can circle yours. All right, you don't have to, I guess. 'Cause obviously,
Do you guys mind removing the bomb toggle, like the radius?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I kind of want to walk through what I think.
And let's remove the tokens as well, just so people don't get confused why there's bombs on. I thought you couldn't do that, or I don't know, whatever. Cool, thanks.
Here's kind of my mentality when I was placing these down. The middle one was kind of a curiosity when I placed that, I will say. It was more than a tactical choice.
Mhm.
But with these objective-based games, if you're flying a list with large bases or medium bases in this case, like like you mentioned, they're worth 2, and you can easily get a large or medium within 2 of these objectives if you place them right. Let's arc, for example. Wolf right here, if he's, let's say he's coming on an arc path through here, he's going to be hitting both of these this turn. It's not going to be hard for him to be contesting 2.
Yeah.
So in that event where you've maybe got a ship, maybe you're at you're at a disadvantage in terms of number of ships to your opponent, I think placing them closer might make more sense. Really try to maximize the value of your ships by trying to make them contest 2 at once or something.
Right.
The reason I placed this one over here, because you have to place one on your opponent's side, my thought process is place it somewhere that they can't easily be at and also be in the fray. Make it be a conscious choice for either me or my opponent to go for that. And of course, if you have a faster ship like an A-wing or something, maybe you send that A-wing up to here.
Yeah.
This upper corner. Something that isn't going to contribute a whole lot to your damage, but could be contributing 1 point a turn. That's pretty significant if no one else is going to go for that. Or it maybe forces your opponent to draw some ships off to try to take that point instead.
Yeah. But when a 1 agility ship dies, they give up points, and maybe a 3 agility ship is better. 1 agility ships and lists that feature 3 ships are probably going to struggle for now. Just because of the sheer, especially with the volume needed for this scenario alone, you need bodies. But yeah, no, it's interesting talking about the turn 0, because a lot of people have been saying that the turn 0 part of the game has, I mean, it's a fact that it's shifted dramatically, but they, some folks are saying that it doesn't matter, which isn't true. But I'm still trying to analyze exactly what kind of strategy I can utilize when setting these up, right? Like, because at the end of the day, depending on what you're playing, those points on your opponent's side are your opponent's until you get there. So, like, you'll never be able to stop that from happening. Like, it's on their side for a reason. There's 2 on your side for a reason.
Yeah, that's why I think you've got to try to prioritize making them in a place where your opponent can't be at both of them, and still get or have be at one, have a clear way in. Try to make them spread out. Try to make them make choices of, do I ignore one of these points just to try to get in the fray, or am I going to split my squad up or whatever?
Yeah, I'm just going to go back.
The turn 0 thing to mention too is so. We've kind of doubled how important turn 0 is now. Turn 0 used to be super important for getting your obstacles placed, right?
Yeah.
Getting lanes, trying to make them spread wide if you've got a swarm, or narrow if you've got some aces. Now you're going to be placing objectives and obstacles. So you've got to now think about, okay, I've got my objectives here. How do I set up my lanes around these objectives so that, like, maybe it'll benefit my ships if they're more maneuverable, or leave them open so I can contest 2 of these objectives at once. Or, if Andrew here says, okay, I see what he's doing, Pim has large bases. He's going to want to try to get these large bases, especially in between this, like, triangle down here of objectives,
Yeah. Why don't you guys actually, sorry, just to cut you off for just for a second. Why don't you guys set up your obstacles?
All right.
And one other thing I wanted to kind of point out, I know you can do this when you get obstacles in the board.
They locked the door. So
This Den Guard here is that
Hi.
big strat.
yelling for you, by the way.
You don't have your keys?
The carpet's all fucked up in the front.
So you're placing first,
moving
Booger.
the floor.
Okay, I'm
Yeah,
fine.
I have 4 bags of them.
I'm in trouble, guys. Sorry. Yeah, so the only rules with placing obstacles is that you just can't have it overlapping. You can get as close as possible to them, right? So you could have them, like, blocking the objective, but you can't have it overlapping it. So you placed a block in the corner, which, cornering obstacles, that's normal. That's the thing that happened before. All right. Can you guys hear me? I think you can.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. I wasn't sure if my microphone was acting up again. Okay, so let's run through this really quick. I'm going to step away just for a quick second to close the door. I'll go ahead and break down why you placed your obstacles where you did.
And one thing I pointed out earlier is that one of the big strategies dealing with big bases is just to block them in the center and circle around and get your shots in as you want. In this scenario, you can't do that because if you get a big base stuck in the center, there's a decent chance, unless you've got your obstacles perfectly like we do here, kind of one in between, that big base is getting two, it's kind of two shifts for two obstacles. It's still going to get its red focus. So how you deal with that situation is completely different in this scenario, even versus some of the others we have.
Yeah. So you guys didn't seem to go the route of trying to block off you placed one right in front of, I think that was Pim. You set that up at the bottom right corner, just off the objective there. But everything else is kind of, there's a bit of breathing room. Oh, it was Buddha. Okay. So what do you think? What's the variability here with? Is it work because you can be range 1, blocking off putting the obstacle right in front of the objective? For larger bases, it might be more of a problem, but I'm not sure if that actually achieves what people think it's going to achieve, right? It's not going to deter someone from being able to be close enough to be able to claim one of the objectives. So
let me start with, if you want to get them an objective, do a small base at the top of the deployment zone to 5 straight forward, and you can grab the objective range 1. So I don't know if everyone's figured that out yet, but just so we're on the same playing field, if you want to get them an objective, 5 straight forward, and you'll have the space to grab it, assuming you didn't kind of mess anything up with that wiggle room.
Yeah.
But if you're flying around here and you're kind of straight on, it's going to be, I think, harder than you think with these big obstacles to get in range 1 without completely disengaging your arc.
The thing this big rock does especially too, let's say, in this case, I've spawned a list in just to give myself kind of a strategy so I'm not just to give myself kind of more conceptual, what am I building for? What am I placing down? Stuff. This rock here, say I've got my V-Wing. The V-Wing can 1 hard. If I just 1 too hard, I can just infinitely kind of go around this objective, keep claiming it. It's a V-Wing, it's not going to be hitting super hard.
Right.
And it's quick and agile, so you reliably throw it up there and say, okay, make my opponent go after this. But by placing this rock here, by the time Tarkin gets around, he's here now.
Yep.
The only way for him to not there is probably some kind of bank maneuver, and then he may be out of arc or out of the range 1. So placing the rock there is another way to say, when my opponent tries to split off and go for this, I'm not going to give them 3 turns of unlimited access to this objective.
Sure.
They're going to have
Right.
to figure out how to stay within with also not hitting that rock. And I'm sure you can maneuver around it with 1 hards and barrel rolls and stuff, but it makes it more difficult.
Yeah. And just to kind of keep things concise and us, being on a good pace here, let's just talk about so I haven't let you guys know, but I am still getting games in. So last night I played Salvage Mission. I was trying to play 2 games at my local game store, but my buddy got stuck in traffic, so we just played Salvage Mission. But I haven't gotten to play this one yet. But you two, how many games do you roughly have you played of Assault at the Satellite Array?
1
so far. 1. And
I think
Mr. Block?
2.
2. Okay, so you've played more than I have. So again, this is all way too early stuff. So, but at the same time, take everybody take it with a grain of salt. But I'm curious, guys. How do you feel about this one? Just without going on a 15-minute rant, if you have one.
Andrew, do you have? You want to go first?
Yeah, I like all the other scenarios. I actively do not like this one.
Oh.
And we'll talk about more of the other scenarios, but there's a initiative engagement that happens in their scenarios where they're trying to tag something and grab something, where lower and higher initiatives have different values. In this scenario, you just kind of sit there, and I hate that. Like, the incentive to float around in a scenario, objective is too great, and I hate that a ship could help you win just by one harding.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you get stuck in the scrum, it's more of a luck thing than a skill thing. You know, if it's a 6 ship on 6 ship list and you all get bumped in the middle, it's not skill that gets you those objectives. It's going to be kind of luck sometimes. I am not a big fan of this. One, just because it doesn't feel like you're not investing to capture an objective. You're just engaging, and you happen to capture objectives.
Interesting.
Pim.
I like this one a lot. Contrary to Andrew's thoughts, I think this one is the most straightforward. I think it doesn't prioritize ships that get free actions, which is my complaint about some of the other ones. Is it really helps ships that like get at full throttle or, spend a force to barrel roll or whatever, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't have that. It just relies on you having your squad kind of semi-close to these things, but I can definitely see where just kind of being bumped, you get rewarded for just kind of staying put and not actually
or toilet bowling
from it.
Right?
Yeah,
and a little toilet
and
bowl,
I
like
think,
you mentioned.
Yeah, and I think that's one reason why that whole self-bump change was in place, is because this one would be super easy to abuse with that. Of you just kind of have your ships bump each other, stay on the points. You're capping them, and you can even body block with like big bases. They can't get close enough to get through.
Yeah.
So I give you kind of insight of what they're doing there. But I like this one because I think I understand it the easiest, and I understand the list build for it the easiest.
Got it. Warbot 0 played in the Cherokee Open against 5 ships. Was at a disadvantage. Opponent can work on staying close in points and kill 1 agility, then push for. Yeah, I mean, so the one thing with all the scenarios, this one I feel like in particular, is that if both opponents don't kind of like mutually agree on how they're going to play it, one person might be, toilet bowling or trying to stay close to the scenarios or to the satellite arrays, while the other person's just blowing this opponent's ships up and not caring, because like you play a math game at that point. 1 point or 2, 3 points every round, versus if you kill a ship a turn, you could game it, or not game it, but you can go the offensive route and kind of ignore a couple of the satellites if you have a potent enough list. So that's where people are trying to find a balance in list building, where they bring something 4 or 5 ship lists that can handle themselves being close to the satellite arrays, but then can also kind of just opt into favorable engagements and push those aside. So this is an interesting one.
There's something that was said in a Discord somewhere, where someone mentioned there's kind of a sliding scale of like worth it for shooting at and trying to kill ships nowadays. Just because you can like it becomes like, do I prioritize getting the point or the ship? And there's some ships that are definitely more worth trying to kill. That are maybe easier. Like a generic Hawk or something, where it's kind of squishy. It only has 2 agility dice. Compare that to like a B-wing, which can have like 10 health in some cases. And it's like, I don't think the B-wing is as worth it for the points. Maybe the Hawk is, or you can come to your own strategy with that.
Right.
But then that adds another wrinkle to how you play the game, which is, I think that's exciting, because now it brings in more strategy to it. It means you're also maybe prioritizing not killing ships, so grain of salt if that's a good or bad thing.
Yeah. We'll just see how people mutually agree on how they play too. It's like, it'll be interesting. Go ahead. Sorry, Andrew.
I mentioned this earlier, but if you're like me, you like to fly big bases, it's actually way easier than you think to bounce someone out of an obstacle range. Like if you are a big base and hovering around an obstacle, like go for the self block. There's a pretty good chance they will be out of range 1, which is maybe not a strategy. Maybe that's an emergent strategy that they hadn't planned for, but it's really easy to prevent your opponent being in range 1 if you're that big base and you're okay just taking the red focus.
And I mean, with self-blocking, like, so I haven't made a pun with your last name yet, but I probably will. This might be the opportunity, but do the Andrew block here. But so with large base, with the way all these scenarios but chance engagement work is that you don't lose ship points or mission points to your opponent until they've killed the ship. So even with if you're blocking yourself with certain ships that have a lot more health, it might be a gamble worth taking if you're healthy enough. Like you're like, yeah, I'll take a 50-50 chance of taking a damage here. Like there's gonna be a lot of interesting decisions being made for the sake of trying to get mission points through, at least with the satellite arrays. Like but yeah, I don't know if you guys have any last words before we move on to chance engagement, which is the second outlined here in the doc, or anything else you guys want to say about assault at satellite array.
I'm good to move on.
Cool. If you guys don't mind clearing the board here, I'll start to read out chance
I'm
engagement.
gonna leave that middle one though.
Yeah, do it. No problem. All right. So, the mission objective: defeat enemy forces to force a retreat from the sector, aka it's pretty much a dogfight. So, the obstacle count remains at 6. Players follow setup rules found in the rules reference. Blah 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 blah. So, at the place obstacles, at the start of the place obstacle step of setup, you place one satellite in the center of the play area. Same thing at range 4.5 of all board edges. And then you place your 6 obstacles, 3 from each, around like you normally would in the standard game of X-Wing. So only one single objective in this. So scoring. Deficit, which won't matter in most cases. At the start of the end phase, a player earns 1 mission point if they control the satellite. A player controls the satellite if they're the only player that has ships at range 0 to 2 of the satellite. When a ship is reduced to half its health, a combined total hull and shields, including any modifications to hull and shields via cards. Oh my gosh, so many words. The opposing player immediately gains mission points equal to half the point value of the destroyed ship, rounded down. So it's a kind of a really, really long way of saying you get half points, and then you get full points once you kill it. When an enemy ship is destroyed or removed from the game, the opposing player gains mission points equal to half the squad value of that ship rounded up. Sorry. When an enemy ship is destroyed. Am I getting that wrong? So you only ever get half the points for killing the ship?
No, it's a weird myth. Yeah, they didn't proofread that one as well.
Okay.
Yeah, because it is conflict. The answer is you get half points when you get half, and then you get full points when you kill them. It's written weird. Just they'll fix it.
Got it. Okay, they should definitely fix that. I will have to, I kind of have to call AMG out, and they really need to actually read their stuff because I'm getting really tired of this.
Yeah, it's the same. We've been dealing with this since FFG. It'd be nice if someone could just hire a better proofreader.
Or maybe they don't have one.
Yeah, hire a proofreader.
Proofreader. So Victory...
Asmodee says no one gets proofreaders. It's their it's their company policy.
At the end of the end of the end phase, if one player has ships remaining in the play area, only their ships remaining, they win the game immediately. If one player has 20 or more points, the game ends, and at the end of the 12th round, the game ends.
And that's a general condition too. That if only one player has ships remaining in the field, they win.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess that makes sense. Like, you're halved when you're halved. I think what's confusing is just, like, when a ship is destroyed, like, you will have achieved the full amount of points.
The round down, the round up thing, it's just like, what?
Is also, a little confusing,
I think what they're trying to say is you get half the points when you get half of them, rounded up. And then once you finish them off, you get the remaining one.
Right. So
but they just wrote it in a bad way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is, half round up, round down. They'll clean that up. I'm sure within a few days. Ideally, they'll get us a new doc updated. So this is basically the only thing about this scenario that makes it objective based is it's just an incentive to not fortress and to engage with your opponent. So, but in almost all cases, that center objective is not going to be like the game determining factor. It's really just, it's going to be who kills more ships, who more points worth of ships. So You guys, I mean, we don't have to talk about obstacle placement too much unless you feel like the center objective like really changes how you look at setting things up here, turn 0.
I think it makes you think about your lanes, or specific lanes harder. You want to make sure you have lanes to the inside.
Yeah.
As opposed to before, maybe you didn't care if you like didn't have the inside, but you could just hang on.
Yeah. And this is another case of you just have to have more ships near the satellite, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no scenario actions. Got it. All right. Well, Pim, we'll start with you. How do you feel about chance engagement?
I mean, it's the most traditional of these scenarios. I think it's fine. Other than that weird rounding thing that we just need to fix the language on. I have one concern, which is like the main concern being if you're the beat down player, right? The one who's getting knocked down, and you have fewer ships, and you've got to try to disengage to kind of come back and re-engage. Your opponent can kind of hold that objective like the king of the hill kind of thing, of like they've got the high ground now to use the relevant Star Wars meme, and you've got to try to get them off the high ground, so to speak. That could potentially make it harder to come back in those kind of games, but also it's 1 point, so it's 1 point a round. If you assume games right now are lasting between 6 and 8 rounds from what I've seen, that could be significant, but also it just comes down to kill more ships. So
it's the most vanilla. I think it's
Yeah.
pretty boring. Ultimately,
it's the Guinea one of like, you guys know how to do this. You've been doing this for
Yeah, been
8,
doing this
9
for-
years.
yeah, exactly. Andrew, do you mind, or Pim, sorry, can you turn on that noise suppression? I'm getting a lot of noise from you for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. The noise suppression thing is not good, but it helps. Discord is still working on it. Yeah. So chance engagement, Andrew, what do you think, man, about this one?
Played it 3 times, and the center point, I don't think I've ever scored more than 1 or 2 points off of the center point. I would say, like, when I think of how the most competitive X-Wing players will approach tournaments, they'll have a list that can win in all 4 scenarios. Because if we are having random scenarios for cut rounds, you can't just bank on grabbing objectives and running. You have to be prepared to win this, which you can't, or will be hard to do with, and not to hate, but it's harder to do with 7 A-Wings or Naboo Handmaidens to win chance engagement than it is with 5 B-Wings or whatever nonsense we have nowadays. I think that will be a very good check for the most competitive. Like, if you want to win a tournament, if you go to win, you have to be prepared to win this scenario, which means you have to bring something that can beat other lists in this and not just 7 A-Wings. So I think that provides value. I hate to say it because I want us to change and grow and try new things. But how often are you playing a game of X-Wing where all of your ships are outside of the obstacles? Like, you almost always have, even if you're disengaging and regrouping, you almost always have one straggler still in the obstacles, which means you have one ship in range, which means one scoring points, really. So I don't think the scenario itself is important, other than it's a gatekeeper for lists that are only good at objectives.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually. It's definitely not exciting when it comes to, looking through the lens of all these new, the new objective, there being objective play. This is not exciting. It does not spark joy, but it is what we're used to. And that is a good point, because those really dull, 6-7 ship Imperial Rebel lists that we've seen, or Republic as well, are probably going to suffer mightily with lists that have more alpha potential. So it is a good gatekeeper for those kind of things. Yeah. Anything else about chance engagement before we get on to the other 2 more interesting objective based scenarios? Nothing. Okay. The room is quiet. So let's go back to our PDF here. Hopefully these next couple are proofed just a little bit better. So this is the one I played last night, so I can actually speak to this one a bit better. So Salvage Mission, which I think is actually probably one of the more exciting ones. I don't know if you guys would agree or disagree. We'll talk about that in a second. But again, if you guys don't mind, we'll reset the board and we'll start to set up for this one as I read through it. So the mission objective of the salvage mission: retrieve as many supply caches as possible before the enemy. You have 5 supply caches in this, so there are 5 total objective markers that you'll be playing with. You roll for road, you place your obstacles, and for this, you place the first supply cache in the center of the board, and then starting with the first player, players take turns placing the remaining supply caches at range 3 of the center supply cache marker and beyond range 2 of each other supply cache. So again, like we did at the satellite array, the first one is placed on their board edge, the first set, and then the last set is placed on the opposite board edge. And then you place up your obstacles. As long as they're not overlapping, you can place them as you normally would. For scoring, the ones that really matter at the start of the end phase earn 1 mission point for each supply cache on a friendly ship's card. When a ship is destroyed or removed from the game, the opposing player earns mission points equal to the squad point value of that ship. So victory is 20 points or more. The game will end after 12 rounds. This is the same standard. It's always going to be 12 rounds as the maximum, or time, whichever happens first. At the end of the game, if both players have at least 1 ship remaining in the play area, player with the most mission points wins. But we get a scenario action called tow. So let me scroll down here. Scenario actions are wide actions that are available to every ship in the play area during scenario play. A ship can perform a scenario action only during its perform action step. Therefore, a ship cannot perform a scenario action if it is granted an action at any other time. So tow. When a ship performs a tow action, choose a supply cache at range 0 to 1, remove the chosen supply cache from the play area, and place it on the ship's card. A ship can only have 1 supply cache. A ship can only have 1 supply cache on its card. And then place one of your player markers next to the ship's miniature to show that it is towing a supply cache. It's just to kind of let your player know, hey, I'm a little bit more important right now. If there is no supply cache in range, the action fails. So you could composure that if you wanted. At the end of a ship's activation, a ship may choose to jettison its supply cache. If it does, remove the supply cache from the ship's card. And then this is the key word here, key part. Then the opposing player places it in the play area anywhere in the play area at range 1 of that ship. So the opponent gets to choose at range 1 of that ship anywhere at range 1 where that supply cache gets jettisoned. While a ship is towing a supply cache, it cannot execute advanced maneuvers, it cannot perform slam actions, or be coordinated. If a ship that is towing a supply cache reveals an advanced maneuver, it performs a stress maneuver instead. If a ship must perform an advanced maneuver, that's the second page, it jettisons its supply cache as described above before executing the maneuver. And lastly, when a ship that is towing a supply cache suffers a crit damage, this could be on the shield, or is destroyed, supply cache is jettisoned. Remove that supply cache from the ship's card, and then the opposing player places the marker in the play area at range 1 of that ship. And then lastly, when a ship that is towing a supply cache is placed in reserve, the supply cache is jettisoned from the ship's position before the ship is placed on its ship card. Wow, that was a lot. So this one is cool. Oh, what's up? Netter Mizuno rating us with 3. What's up, man? Hi, Netter. I'm surprised you're not playing on stream somewhere, man. And why aren't you asleep? Netter doesn't sleep. Yeah, so this is one I wanted to try first because I like the fact that you get to like capture things and run around with them, and there's like certain higher priority targets, and it forces very specific engagements. So I think this is probably the most exciting for me. We'll talk more about how we feel about it, but are you guys okay? Did we lose one of you? No, I think you're both here. Okay. You're still placing their supply caches right now.
Yeah, it's to be honest, it matters a little less in this scenario because you have to grab like the other objective scenarios, you have to grab your 2 in front of you at round 1. Like you're losing out if you do not.
Yeah.
And because of that, it's more the objective placement is how far out do I want to pull my opponent to grab their objective. But again, because you do it before obstacles, because you do it before you play ships, you can generally navigate this so you don't. Like, if I had 2 obstacles super far up, that would suck to put Engar having to do a 3 forward or ever to grab the objective.
Yeah.
Realistically, that won't happen that much. Like, you'll be able to bring your own objective in closer. You'll have a lesser point ship that can go grab it. Like, you're gonna grab your own ships round 1. Or your own obstacles round 1. And then the fun starts from there. So I think obstacle placement is probably less important on this one. And there's probably a decent chance you just want to bring them out if possible, or you want to push the objective way back in the corner so they can't move quickly to the center.
Yeah. I think a big thing too for this is deciding who's going to be the one to carry that cargo. That the scariest thing is in the world of proton torpedoes, the second world of proton torpedoes, that we're gonna be seeing them a lot more. The crit coming through and making you lose that cargo, and your opponent getting to pick where in range 1 of your ship it goes. You have to be very careful with who you give. So don't give it to a decimator. Don't have your decimator pick up one of these cargos. Don't have any 1 agility or 0 agility ship. Like, you gotta give it to your hard to hit AC faces or 3 agility ships. What do you guys think about that? Do you think there's any other way to do it?
I think this is part of what makes this scenario so much fun, is that on one hand, I want to give Fen Rao the obstacle because he's the hardest person to hit here. Also, I don't want them shooting at Fen Rao.
Right.
So I want to give it to the 2-point nonsense filler ship. And that, I don't know what's best, I don't know what's right, but that trade-off is interesting and is part of the fun of this scenario.
Yeah. I think you have to be careful. Your best ship should probably avoid taking the cargo unless you have that opportunity in front of you and you can disengage. But, like, we'll talk more about it. Pim, what do you think?
I mean, I got one ship on the board right now, but I'm pretty good to carry. So when you tell the boys, we have to play them full.
Hold on, Pim. You know what? Just that was my fault. Kill the noise suppression because, man, it is so bad. That's all right. There you go. Let's do it again. It was like, wow, Discord's got some things to learn. Still.
But I've got one ship on the board right now that I think is pretty good.
Can you hear him okay?
No, he sounds scratchy to me.
Yeah, you're very quiet and a little scratchy.
Hang on.
Stand by.
So I'm gonna mansplain Pim's list for him.
Buy Pim's ships, guys. Exclamation point Pim, get him a microphone.
Exclamation point Pim. I think he's trying to say is that Broadside, who is a fabulous ship to fly, the Republic Y-Wing is gonna turn 1 crit into a hit. Unless you have specific munitions or ships, there's not a lot of crits happening in the game. Like, you have to work to get a crit.
Not on TTS.
Investing points. And these Republic Y-Wings are a great choice to mitigate that.
I think he's testing his microphone. The only thing is, though, so Republic Y-Wings, their ability is resolved in the modify dice step, which means that if your opponent has the opportunity to change a hit to a crit, it is done after they have the chance to, which makes Plated Hull, honestly, really bad. Like, it should be better than that. Because it says while you defend, like, you wouldn't think that that's the way it's resolved, but alas, that is. But it still matters. Like, if someone rolls a natty, they just roll a crit and you get to change it. But
part of what's fun is, like, crits aren't that common. Like, crits are, the munitions to take crits are usually pretty expensive. You have advanced and regular proton torpedoes, which are a big investment, or mag pulses, which are not that big investment, but you still need a lot to do it.
Mag pulses are going to be probably used a lot more. APTs went up, right, and rightfully so. They're 8 points now.
To many lists, it's just chance, and I think that's part of the fun. The other thing I like about, if we're getting in this scenario, is that it's worthwhile to chase someone. In other scenarios, if a ship flees to the board edge and they have a couple of hull left and they got 3 agility, probably not worth going for it because you're probably not going to get the kill.
Yeah.
In this case, it can certainly be worth it if you have the tech to get the crate off them.
Oh, for sure. And again, like if they're running away from you and you land that, you can have it jettison behind them and just pick it up on your pursuit. It's
Yeah.
pretty good.
That's the other thing that makes the initiative balance interesting here is that there is a big incentive to have lower initiative for the scenario, because if you grab a crate, no one else can.
Yeah.
And they may pop it off you during engagement. But this is the one scenario where you can guarantee that my opponent will not get these objective points if I get the crit.
Yeah.
Like if there is a obstacle or there's a objective laying out there and I have an I1, it's mine.
Yeah, I definitely want to play another one of another salvage mission game. I think the fear is like running, like your opponent having ships that can just like pick up and run away from you the rest of the game. So like at that point you need to either kill something expensive or be the one that has 3 of them.
I'll say from what I've seen so far, if you've got really defensive, which means your opponent can be a little more aggressive, get off.
I don't know. We could barely hear you, man. I'm sorry.
How about now?
There we go. That's better. Dude, say that again.
So, the one thing I was going to say is, like, I think totally falling the line.
Hold on. I think something is borked. You like I can hear you well, and then the noise like just like kicks way up, and you get a lot quieter.
Unplug it and plug it back in.
I feel like you did that already.
I know.
Right? It's like if you try turning it off and back on again.
So there's always plan B, which is use the other microphone, which is a lot
There you
shittier,
go.
but we can
Yeah.
at least hear.
There's no noise though.
It's true. I don't know what's going on with
Exclamation
my
point
mic.
Pim, get this man a mic.
I have a nice mic, and it said "fuck you" tonight.
What are you using? I'm just curious.
Scarlett 2i2 input. What the hell are these things called? Digital audio interface. That's it.
Oh,
It's
got
DAW. Or DAI, and then a MXL cardioid mic, which is usually great, and today it decided to really hate me.
That's sorry.
So now we're using the Logitech 1080 webcam mic. Shout out to Logitech
Thanks,
sponsoring
Logitech,
this
for being a
sponsoring the
backup
stream.
option. Right. Yeah, thanks, Logitech. Anyways,
Um,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Plated Hole in the Y-Wings seems really good for this. Just anything that can cancel crits, Impervium, Plated Hole. I'm sure there's other things that I can't think of right now. Is fantastic for this. Compassion would cancel crits, I believe, too.
It has to be. I think it has to be.
It'd be pilot.
crit. Yeah, it's very
Right.
fringe case use.
It is. It's possible.
Yeah.
And I do think like if one player has 3 or 4 of these crates, they're going to be playing super defensively. You can get all of a sudden you can be super. You know, if you don't have any crates or something, you are going all in on trying to like get crits through, take ships out. And then you know it changes the dynamic a little bit. I like this scenario because I think it. You know, now you have to think about which ships can I send off and which can survive with these crates, at least long enough for me to score some points.
Yeah.
Enduring is a really good point too, that Deslin makes. Enduring is going to be everywhere for a while.
And just going back to what G Bombgrass said, I'm all for extended, but it seems like everyone is all about standard or hex. I assume Scott is doing some sort of version of extended. Is that what that means? Hex-stended? Or is that just a typo? Is it Hexiled having their own form of extended? No. I'm bummed out that they basically flat out said that they're killing extended. Or at least
I think the big thing is
future.
organized play is going to be, or like the big events, the championship level events are going to be standard, and store events will still be extended. It's the same thing we're kind of going towards with those hyperspace trials.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same trajectory we had.
Yeah, I just it's a lot of iconic fan and player favorites that are at least in the future
and
events.
I'm hoping they talked about they want to focus on reprinting to get more ships back in standard, and I hope they do that. I mean,
how long are we
2
talking
ships,
though, right? Do I need to wait 2 years to get the E-wing?
I mean, the E-wing's never coming back. I'm sorry, Nick.
Come on, man, come on. AMG gave them the tech slot. They gave them the tech slot, and it was like they knew. They're like, we're gonna let people have their little fun before we pull the life support on all these ships, and it goes dark forever.
The Lambda and the TIE Bomber, I think, are the next thing you got to bring into standard, just because of how iconic they are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm shocked that we still never got a 2.0 type armor. Like, absolutely blown away.
Yeah, same with the Lambda too. The Lambda is primed for like some kind of config to make it, not insanely hard to fly.
Oh,
But
extended with the ban list. Got it.
So
Honestly,
before,
RIP
and
Slave 1 title. RIP.
I've said this unpopular opinion before, but I would love if they released unpainted of the reprints. Like if they gave us unpainted Lambdas and TIE Bombers, said all the old ones are legal, all your stuff already is legal. Here's a more hobbying version of the game. As long as that meant they could release those ships to standard much quicker, I think that would be a fun part of the game to introduce. Maybe other people hate that. I
don't think painting is going to be the holdup on the project.
Probably not. Oh, definitely not.
Also, to be fair, too, like they backed themselves in a corner when they promised that they weren't going to have people need to paint their ships. They literally were backed.
I think I would like to see it for reprints at least for some of this stuff. And like Pim said, like it's probably not why it takes so long. But I think that'd be a fun part of the hobby to bring up and make happen, at least to grow.
Well, one thing
one more thing about this scenario. Yeah. Everyone at Cherokee Open said almost everyone said this is their favorite. Like this has been far away what people say is their favorite scenario.
So I was right in wanting to play it first in the sense that
Yes.
It seemed like the most fun, right?
I think it's because we all are secretly gambling addicts, and gambling for that crit is so fun. It's really, really fun. And then the dynamic of, oh, where do I get to place this crate as a reward to myself for gambling and getting that crit is a blast. Yeah. I think this is far away the best one they have, just because it's that, like, if you have crit tech on the board, everyone knows it and they're watching for it. But for most of your ships, for 80% of your ships, it's really just a luck game, and you're praying and hoping you get that one perfect, star, so you can pick up the crit the next turn.
Yeah. No, definitely. I am eager to be able to experiment more with playing the list that I've built with this in mind.
I also think this is the one scenario where not sacrificing, but putting a ship out there, 5-forwarding it with no mods to the center to grab the center objective is worth it more so than the others.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting choice as well.
For sure. The access to Ryan Stanisiewski on GSP Sim being able to boost is going to be huge. It's going to be big. Anything else about Salvage Mission, which we can touch on everything before we end our breakdown of everything. But anything else before we move on to the last one? Nothing. Okay, cool. So lastly, scramble the transmissions. So this is another objective that we'll be using, or scenario that will be using 5 objectives. So the mission objective is scramble the transmissions from the satellite to deny enemy forces valuable information. So the same core setup mechanics apply in terms of the centering the first one in the middle of the mat, and then let's see, let me scroll down here. Scoring at the start of the end phase, or at the end, each player earns 1 mission point for each satellite they control. The player whose marker is on each satellite controls that objective. When a ship is destroyed or removed, you get the squad points from that ship's value. Got it. Victory, 20 points is a victory. Whoever has the most points after 12 rounds, or destroys their opponent's list. Victories. Those are all victory conditions. Scenario action, though, and fastest PDF reader is driving me crazy. Scramble scenario action is a wide action available to every ship. A ship can perform a scenario action only during its perform action step. It remains the same. So when a ship performs a scramble action, chooses a satellite at range 0 to 1 and places one of your player markers on the chosen satellite. If the chosen satellite has another player's marker on it, roll an attack die. On an eyeball result, hit result, or crit result, replace their marker with one of your own. On a blank result, remove the opposing player's marker, but do not replace it with your own, so it becomes neutral. Man, people might get really tilted if they have a bad dice game, and every time they try to claim their
Listen,
opponent's satellite. They
At the
blank
very
out.
least, at the very least, the blank still does something.
It's
'Cause,
still
man,
denies
if the
them.
if a blank didn't do anything, that would feel so bad.
Oh yeah.
I've played this a couple of times, and I love the concept, but my feelings towards it are bad because of those dice. And that's it's a tough sell because if you're going for these objectives, especially if it's placed far out, you're now putting your ship in a bad position strategically. It's likely not getting a shot. You're taking its action, and you may not even get any real benefit from it. At least it doesn't feel like you're getting one because you don't.
Yeah.
You denying your opponent a point doesn't feel like you get a benefit. So there's big potential for feels bad moments in this scenario, even though I think it's really interesting, and that trade-off of I'm going to give up my mod a chance to get a point and to definitely deny my opponent a point, but there is
Here's has this happened with Andrew? How many games have you played of this?
3 or 4.
Okay, so you played a few games. Has it happened where you've rolled up on your opponent's satellite and been like, I'm gonna claim it? You roll the die, you claim it. They roll up, they're like, I'm gonna claim what you just claimed. They roll the die, and then you roll up with your other ship, and then you claim it, and it's like back and forth. Like in one, has that happened at all yet in your games?
It's only happened one time, like I claim it and they claim it. I actually think that's great, and I think again that's part of the fun of the different initiatives. That like if you're bringing one list for all these scenarios, for the crates you want lower initiatives. For this one, you want the higher initiatives, maybe, but also it's easier to claim one than it is to claim your enemies. So it's a great balance. I think hard feelings come when you have to sacrifice position for no benefit. And I think that's just a game design principle I've seen before, that even if you get something that's very minor, that feels a lot better than getting nothing. And when you roll a blank on the sensor scrambler, it feels like you lost in every single way. Like denying your opponent in a point does not feel like a win, which is a bad, frankly, it's a bad gameplay design. Like people want to roll dice, they want to kill the orcs, like they want to do damage. And I'm serious, like it's part of a lot of modern game design is you want to do things.
Yeah.
And if all you do is remove your opponent's token, that doesn't feel like you've done anything, even though I think the strategic choice is very interesting.
Yeah,
like
Rebel Han for the win on this one. Yeah, Han in general, man.
Well, this is why they changed Count Dooku crew, right?
Oh yeah.
Dooku was for the it was for this and like the damage cards,
The
and all that
obstacles,
stuff.
yeah.
Obstacles, yeah. So real quick, you mentioned like rolling the blank. I think it's still too so it's on any result but a blank result. So 6 of the 8 facings you will successfully claim your opponent's satellite. I think like crit results should also it should be a little bit harder. I feel like it being like, you know how like Fane's ability is like pretty much anything that's worth anything you can spend it and use his ability. It's the same thing here, but I don't know. I think there needs to be a little bit more depth with this.
If you roll a
part of
blank,
it.
you get a calculate or something. Like there's some design here where you can make it feel less bad when you get a blank.
Yeah, right, because it is still there's still an action. Tim, what are your thoughts on this one?
I think you just get rid of the chance, and then you're like, I think it just makes everyone happier.
Sure.
See, but I feel like that's, I don't know. Like I get what you're
fun
saying.
of this one. To me, I think the fun of this one is like Nick was saying of like the whole duck season, rabbit season with the sensor. It's mine. No, it's mine. No, it's mine. You know. I think that's where this one becomes more interesting, kind of more exciting, is the going back and forth that versus trying to like roll. And like you said, if you get out, and you're in the middle of nowhere, you're in no man's land, you've rolled for the sensor, you've lost, and now they're just going to pounce on you and you haven't gained anything for it.
Right. Yeah, it's a good point. If you roll a blank, you should get a calculator or something. I mean,
yeah.
Or even,
also,
like, you could do it as a red action to guarantee it, like a white for a 6 out of 8. Or a red for an 8 out of 8. Like that could be like, and I feel like they may have tested this stuff already and decided they didn't like it. But something about denying your opponent a point feels bad.
Yeah.
What about like the scenario action giving you the opportunity to choose to link it to a red calculate? Like, is that too much?
I think thematically to calculate on something that's not a droid feels weird. Again, I feel like I'm not a game designer in any sense, and so I wish there was something else here because you remember the bad things. Like you remember the bad times and
Right.
that bad feeling of
Remember the bad times.
25%. 25% is going to happen more often than you think it is, right? That's just law of averages. So yeah, I mean, you're going to remember like, okay, maybe that round I tried to scramble 3 or 4 different sensors and I ended up getting 3 points. Or like
or I
2
remember
points.
that time I put my valuable ship on the line because I knew, like, one thing we've talked about is that you can tell when the momentum is going against you, and sometimes you need to prevent your opponent from getting points because of the short number of rounds. And so I put my ace out there, and I left him modless in open space. I still didn't even get the point myself.
So
I don't know.
it sounds like it's problematic, is what you're saying, because I haven't played this one.
So I think it's gonna be a first impression thing because my first couple of games with it, I rolled flakes and I got blown up for it. Like first impressions matter so much, and it's on me to change my mindset of how do I open this up to be something fun and interesting and readjust my expectations, not on the game, because all these things we talked about, I feel confident they've probably tested it. And they decided on this for a reason. So I'm going to embrace the suck. And
there's so much to test though. So there's like, I mean, there's a lot. So, I mean, we'll wrap up talking about this scenario and then we can kind of get into, you know, a short rant about a lot of things or just a discussion. Let's call it a discussion, right? So if you remove, so Pim, you said remove the chance. But if you do that, I feel like this is even more dull because it's like similar to like the other one enough. Like they all kind of are like, oh, the only difference is like this one, they don't move with you. They just stay there. But like it's I appreciate what they're trying to do though. Like
I agree. Like you need to vary them some way other than just like you have to do an action for this one you just have to stand next to. There needs to be some variation for sure. But you can also introduce that variation by adding more objectives or removing some objectives. These are all 5, right?
Right.
All of these scenarios, except for chance encounter.
And the way they're set up is very, like, to me, it's probably one of the least exciting parts of it is that it's like, okay, like, you already write off the fact that two of them are not yours for a while.
Yep.
And
there's one dead center, and it's going to be 2 on each player's side. And that just
so then it's like a in the center of the match, just slamming into each other, and it's gonna get really messy. And then the self bumping could be abused even by accident, because someone could get in the way and make you kind of conga line bump into all of your own stuff. And I mean, let's talk about bumping really quick. In the scenarios where you have scenario actions, it's huge if you get in the way. Like it sucks. Because if you know they're trying to claim something, you're like, all right, I'll just get in your way. You can only take a red focus.
That's the thing. Everyone's like, bumping sucks now. It's like, no, bumping is still super important.
Yeah, I think it's more of the shooting at range 0 that is probably what.
Yeah, but you can deny so many things.
Yeah. Except for a couple of bad feels moments, I don't think shooting at range 0 is a big change. Like it's. I've played 15, 20 games. I've done it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah,
I think it's just introduce variance. Like, it just introduces more variance to the game that people are gonna feel bad about at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, if a wedge rolls up to you and he's like, "All right, hey there, so you know, I get my 3 dice and natties on red. The red dice happen all the time because they're so good. You know, 50% chance on every die you get a damage. And then he's already taken a die away from you on defense.
He's actually not. That was
is he not? Are people?
You can't modify. You can't modify dice, and that is a modification. Wedge doesn't work. Or no, it's not a modification. It's add or move. You can't add or remove dice. But
he's not physically adding or removing a die.
He is. He's removing one of your defense die. They added that specifically. Like you cannot add or remove dice at range 0 attacks.
Seems like our local guys don't understand that, so I'll have to.
Yeah, they just came through yesterday.
It was like they posted new rules, and then 2 days later they posted updates that clarified kind of exact point.
That update came out like a few days ago. It was super recent. They clarified and so important to note wedge wouldn't work, 7 feet gunner wouldn't work.
Doesn't work.
The first order gunner, special forces gunner won't work.
Yeah.
Anything that gives you extra die, it doesn't work at range 0. Even if
So before we move on to a full scale, like a wider discussion, but both of you guys, what's your favorite? And what's your least favorite? What's the one that you look forward to playing the most? Like if you go to a tournament, let's say you're going to a tournament tomorrow. Ignore the list building side of it for a moment. What are you hoping gets rolled for the first round of the day? Like what is the scenario you want to play the most? So Tim, I'll start with you.
I want to try. I see that my view is a little skewed because I haven't tried the crates yet.
Sure.
And I want to try the crates. I've only done the satellite and the sensor scramble.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to try the crate one, but I think that also has the most interesting give and take to it. To where you've got to spend your action picking it up, and now if you picked it up when you're too close, all of a sudden you're taking potentially modded shots versus your unmodded defense because your action was to pick up the crate. And I think that has such an interesting dynamic of what do I prioritize here? Do I prioritize trying to clear, like make some space and then pick it up? Or do I prioritize just picking it up immediately and just hoping I don't get a crit?
Yeah, the salvage mission, I mean, so what's the last one what's your least favorite of like the one you just maybe wouldn't look forward to?
I think it's Sensor Scramble.
I
think it's Sensor Scramble just because it has, I think Andrew's right. You need some sort of reward for that blank beyond just denying your opponent the point. Because ultimately denying your opponent the point it's not a reward, it's a penalty for them, right?
Yeah.
You're penalizing your opponent. As opposed to getting a reward.
And if you spend an action, you can just... Sorry, go ahead.
Right. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, what's stopping... Like, let's say you and I play that scenario, and you go up and try to claim a satellite, and I just, like, sit there and nuke you because you spent an action to do it. Like,
oh, yeah.
What is stopping players from just, like, having... Like, it's going to be a one-sided affair a lot, right? People will be smart enough to just be like, oh, it's just worth 1 point. They have to spend an action to even try. So like
it depends, I think. That also is, you've also got to consider maybe I'm okay getting my ship nuked if it means I get 1 point. Maybe its value is 2 points, right? It's my filler ship. I'm going to say screw it.
Sure.
And then if you're nuking that one, you're focusing on that. And the rest of my list can maybe focus, on some of the other ships or something.
Mm-hmm.
There's still trade-offs and there's still reasons to try to get it.
Yeah.
The question just becomes, how many resources do you invest in these?
And in most cases, lists are going to feature ships that are worth about 20% of the game in terms of mission points. So, like, there are going to be very few cases where you're willing to lose a ship. The good news is you can take half points, and you actually don't... I mean, you can take half, and it's not half points outside of chance
you've got
engagement.
1 hole left.
So that's
you've
nice.
got 2 points left, or whatever, however much it is.
And, like, now, the Luke that would be worth 95 points is... turtled up 70. For the whole game. Yep. Well, yeah, I mean, what I put on it last night was ridiculous.
And you could also link a boost after it, and so a lot of ships that you would go to capture objectives like A-Wings or TIE interceptors.
Jake is going to be good, man. Even better.
And get them, and get them into themselves in a position to do that, to hide an obstacle or get away from Narc.
Definitely.
I feel like this one's going to be the most one that's an afterthought with list building. I think the other ones become the priority of list building, and I think this just becomes kind of, I'm going to figure it out when I get there.
Yeah.
At least to me, that's how I view it, because the other ones I think I have a better grasp of what I need to do to get them. And this one, just because it has that chance thrown in, is kind of like, I'm just going to go and see what my opponent does and kind of try to react.
Right.
Which isn't the best strategy, but with four scenarios, there is going to be one that when you list build, you're just going to kind of ignore and be like, I don't know what to do with it, so forget it.
Yeah, definitely. Andrew, what about you? Favorite, least favorite?
I just want to not to criticize him. I think, in your point that this is this scramblers is what you wouldn't list build around is part of our whole lack of willingness to change. Like, because if a 6/8 chance, how many times are you going to scramble them? Probably only a couple. So if you get it right, it's really important. I think our lack of understanding of that is part of the reason why we're all still bad at this game.
I 100%. I 100% reserve the right to be wrong about any of this crap. I've played only a few
probably
games.
both very wrong. Yeah, I would say my least favorite by far is Assault Satellite Rank, because like a lot of people have memed that it's just jousting, and I think those people are completely wrong. So it's satellite ray. It's getting pretty
But
close
there
to
is some
jousting.
truth there, though. Like, let's be
Well, that's
honest.
because we're
Again, it's
dumb.
this mutual acceptance that people are going to be like, it's just better for me to claim 50% of the game in 2 rounds than to go for something that's worth a few points.
Are we going into rant mode yet? Can we transition that?
Well,
stage?
hold on. I mean, not yet. But I mean, anyways, I was just kind of go ahead, keep going.
So, Soul and Satellite Ray to me is the most jousting because you have to be in the middle of the board. I just like. Actually, 2.0 is fabulous where you can like toilet bowling. There's a reason to toilet bowl sometimes. There's even plenty of reason to just kind of fly up and down the board, even if there's center objective. There's still reasons why it's a good reason, like a good option to fly up and down the board. But Assault Satellite, I don't know. That is just, to me, that's just jousting. Like you have to be in the middle of the board.
So I want to hit on a few points really quick. So we talked about, so the data has been gathered so far. I want to give Greg a shout out, and we'll be getting a lot more data at Adepticon. By the way, I'll be judging there. I hope to see some of you guys there. I'm not sure if either of you are coming though, right? You two?
I'm not gonna make it this year.
Well, in spirit.
Not in the cards for me either, unfortunately.
So one of the first thing is that the new limit's 12 rounds or time, but 12 rounds is we have round counters now. But the average, Pim, you mentioned, is about 6 rounds. You can get to 7.
I can be completely wrong.
But so far,
that's what I've been seeing as the common number.
That's
6
the
or
common
7.
number, yeah. And the games that are Game Store last night, that was the case for the when I walked in, we had 2 of our players playing. It was 6 rounds. So that's 6 rounds in 75 minutes, or not, but like what has that breakdown? That's like what's the math on that? 12 or 11 minutes?
Yeah, about 12. Yeah.
So, yeah, about 12 minutes per round. But time isn't an issue. It's typically you just get to the point total. So is 6 rounds, to me, that's not enough. Like, that's a slow game. And I'm curious what you guys think. Like, I know for a fact, at least with 2.0, I'm not going to try to make too many comparisons, but hey, this is brand new to us, so that's what we're going to be doing for a little while. 6 rounds was really low when I played 2.0, but there were less things to think about. Now there are more things to think about. So what is your take on that first? Whoever wants to go first.
I'm gonna grab another beer, probably back in 30
Okay.
seconds.
That gives me 30 seconds to rail on it
30
without
seconds.
anyone on the clock. Here's my takeaway on the round, the game length. I think shorter games are kind of interesting if they are ending faster, because like I don't think people are taking 12 minutes a round usually. I think people are usually probably taking 7 to 8, which means they're going to be ending these games probably before time happens.
Yeah.
Which I kind of like. That's one thing I've always liked about X-Men compared to other minis games. It's a lot snappier, a lot quicker. This accelerates that maybe to a too far to the quick side. That's gonna be personal preference, and we're gonna kind of see as that plays out. I will say in the few games I've played of 2.5, there was one where like I was getting to the point where I was gonna have to start making difficult decisions about my maneuvering, and I was kind of unsure what to do. And then I looked over and realized I had 21 points. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Right.
I don't have to
talking
worry
about the
about
game on Nick
Yeah,
CX,
on
right?
NCX.
That
Yep.
you like just like steamrolled.
Yeah, it was 4 rounds, and like
Yeah, that's
by the
insane.
time of that 4th round, I was like, okay, my U-wing's not in a great spot. General Grievous is behind it. I can't do anything to stop it other than like taking a stress and rotating, and I didn't want to do that. My B-wing may be going over this cloud. My Y-wing just died, and my A-wing is facing the complete wrong direction. And then I looked over, and it's like, oh, we're done.
Yeah.
And that felt weird. I don't think it felt terrible for me. My opponent may have thought differently, because I won pretty handily, so I could see my opponent being like, oh, I needed more time. But I think that was just an interesting feeling of like, it's so different. I don't think I can make a judgment on whether I like it more or less yet. It's still too new, and I need to play more and
Yeah, no, for
But
sure.
it's definitely gonna be a faster game, and that could be a bad thing. It could be good. It could be a good thing. It all depends on what you're kind of looking for.
When I hear like the game feels incomplete when it ends, you could relate to that at least with that game?
At least with that game, it definitely felt abrupt. I wouldn't say incomplete, because I think I definitely had the upper hand in that game, and I think I could have finished it out. The game wasn't a foregone conclusion by any means,
Yeah.
but it felt like probably just ballparking. I had like a 60 to 70% chance of being like winning that game, at least in terms of what I played and how I feel, my confidence level, I guess. If I was like, pretty confident, I would still be able to pull out the win. So I guess it didn't feel incomplete in that regard of like, I felt like I did what I needed to earn the win, and then the win would have been a matter of time in traditional,
Yeah.
or, in the past. I don't want to say traditional or anything like that. That's not probably the right term to use. But it just felt abrupt. It felt very abrupt, like, oh, and we're done now. I didn't necessarily feel incomplete, or like I didn't get my enjoyment out of it. I still had fun. It just was like, okay, I guess we're done.
And I'll touch on that after Andrew chimes in. Andrew, let's call it 6 rounds. 6 rounds feel like enough. Like, do you think that's a good number, or do you think we really should be, and it'll change, I'm sure, as we go on, do this more. Do you think it should be higher by like, should be 9 rounds? Should you be getting closer to 12 rounds?
So I think the ultimate conclusion for me is it's too few, but that's because of the results I've seen so far, not because I think it's objectively too few rounds. So some of what I've seen is that it's clear one person would win the ultimate dogfight, but someone else has done a better job engaging with the objectives. Like, you have multiple ships on half hull or on only a couple hull left, and you would, in a 2.0 world, chase them down and win that game, like, easily. Now they've won that game because they've made the objectives better. And part of that is our mindset and how we approach the game and how we approach list building, so it's on us to fix that. I have found that, I don't know, it's a balance, because I sometimes I'll look at board states and say, oh, I've taken off 2 of their 4 ships or 2 of their 6 ships at the end of the game, and that doesn't feel like enough. But at the same point, those same board states, I look at them and say, we could play for 30 more minutes, and I have a 95% chance of winning, so why play the rest of the game? Like, if games are ending at 50 minutes and not an hour 15, and the last 25 minutes are 95% of the time just mopping up, is that really a good thing for the game? I don't think so.
But my counter is that close games are good for X-Wing. Like, they're great part of the competitive scene, and I don't want... I want close games. I don't want blowout mop-ups all the time.
Part of the joy is the shitty storytelling of, like, one hero can save the world, which is stupid. But, like, Fed Rao can beat everyone. Soontir can beat everyone. Boba Fett can beat an entire... Like, even Grievous, who's a 50-point I4, can so, like, Lulo, ZZ. Like, these are all ships that if you get really, really lucky, you could solo a list. If you're really good, you play perfectly, and you get the right dice. And that's not going to happen anymore, and that's, to me, a shame. But it also means that all those games where you're losing and you just spend the last 15 minutes tilted because you've lost the game, you're playing a competitive environment, so you want to play till the end just in case, those games are gone. And so it's a balance.
Yeah. Greg and I were talking about, like, is the pathway to a comeback too narrow, or is it... I'm not going to say it doesn't exist, but, like, I can touch on what you just said. In this new Brave New World we're in, things are going to change, and this is me seeding the points that they could add new scenarios. They could change scenarios. They could change points. All of those things I see that's gonna happen. But right now, up to Adepticon or whatever, can you come back? Like, when you identify that you're behind in 2.0, like, you're behind, these are my win conditions, these are the adjustments I need to make, this is how much time I have, all these moving parts, all these factors. Now, my opponent has 4 of the cargoes, 3 agility ships with 5 forward boosts. there, I mean, at least with salvage mission, right? There's no comeback there, unless your opponent runs off the board edge or with all their ships or something, right? So, how does the comeback get affected here? What do you guys think?
I will say you have to weigh like. I think that's dead. Like that is almost dead. Like the comeback happens if they're flying a big base worth, or even a small base. Like if they're flying a Vader or Soontir,
Sure.
something worth 6+ points, and you got it close, you can come back.
Yeah.
But the comeback that I think all of us have seen before, that's bad. That's
I don't
too
think we're
bad.
gonna even see like a Soontir very often, because that is just a expensive piece to not be able to engage in a lot of situations with. Like Soontir cannot be where everyone is going to be.
I think we'll learn how Soontir can take 3 damage, and like successful Soontir game will end with Soontir on 1 or 2 hull left.
It's just 6 points for Soontir. Like I
For
almost
what
think he
it's
should be
worth.
5.
For what it's worth, we've seen like time and again in X-Wing where people have said X is dead, and then
Right.
X has gone on to win major event.
Yeah, for sure.
Like strategies will change, and we'll learn how to use these pieces.
Yeah.
I think you can definitely come back. It's super dependent on the situation. And you're right. Like in the case of your opponent has 5 A-wings or 4 A-wings remaining, and they all have a crate, and they're just going to boost in 5 straight, or they're going to focus boost in 5 straight, or whatever. They're gonna do A-wing things, and that's going to be super hard. But let's say your opponent has 2 crates, and you're only down by 2 points, and 2 of those A-wings are on 1 health or something. I mean, there's very other ways where you can come back and still have close games and still have those come from behind games. Some ships will always be incredible at deleting things, and at the end of the day, that's still the quickest way to win. Well,
Right.
the most straightforward way to win. Maybe not quickest.
Sure.
But the most straightforward way
A
to win is
combination
just,
of the two is gonna get you there in 2 or 3 rounds. Yeah.
if I destroy all of my opponent's ships, I'm going to win the game.
Right.
I just have to do it quick.
So that leads me to the next thing real quick, and sorry to cut you off. Obviously, I'll let you finish whatever you were gonna say, but 20-point threshold. I think almost everyone I've listened to, I've talked to, and I've read on the wild west of the internet says that 20 points is too low. So that, if that's changed, could open the doors for more comeback potential.
I mean, you
Right.
just extended the game, right? With 5 points, a theoretical 5-point maximum for each round, right? Your opponent, let's say one player is really beating the opponent down. They're getting 5 points every round. That's a 4-round game.
Yeah.
If you make it the threshold 25 points, now it's a 5-round game. If you make it 30, it's a 6-round. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's the quickest way to fix a lot of problems people have of like that feeling of incompleteness, and also maybe I can't come back and it's a foregone conclusion after 2 rounds. My opponent's up by 8 points, right? Let's just say that, and I don't feel like I can come back. If instead of counting to 20, you're now counting to 25 or 30, 8 points isn't as important. Isn't as insurmountable, I should say.
Right. Again, there are enough ships out there, pilots out there that are going to be played for X or Y reason that are worth a quarter of the mission total.
Yeah.
Like it's like boom, like you killed that ship, that's going to be game. Like both players know that just set yourself up.
There's a lot of fan
to
favorite
win.
ships out there that are 5 points.
Yeah.
I think
Good.
part of like when I hear people say the game should be 25 points because that will make it less objective dependent, that says to me that those people don't understand the basics of game design. Like if you move to 25 points, it will be more objective focused because the late game when you're going from 20 to 25 points, it has less ships on the board, which means you have less offense and more incentive to be defensive. So 25 points won't solve anything. But changing number of objectives or how you capture them, that could absolutely change the variation of how many points are scored objectives versus ships. But the number itself is not going to do what people say, which is why I have a doubt in people's opinions.
But the
number
game needs to be
itself will
extended
extend the
because
game.
4-round games are unacceptable. That's a joke.
Are they?
I'm not gonna.
Or are we just?
Oh yeah, that's a total
It's like-
joke.
Is that a result of poor points balance and poor strategy?
No, I mean, there's a lot of 4-round games, and I think that's not good. Like,
But that is us being stupid.
I mean, is it me being stupid? Like, is everyone being stupid? I mean, everyone's learning, but I'm just saying, like, they could change so many things, but games should not be foregone conclusions that many times in 4 rounds. Like there are so many games that have ended in 4 rounds so far, and I am
That's
concerned.
because in X-Wing 2.0, if you take a B tier jousting list and take it up against Pim's A+ tier jousting list, you're gonna lose in 4 rounds because you're jousting someone who's better than you. Like
I'll give
that's
you
not
credit for
any
that list. I
different.
would make that list. I'll give you credit for that.
Score points by the difference in objective control is my honest opinion the best way to make it less.
Shuffleboard,
think-
that seems reasonable. Yeah.
I think increasing. So you're right. Increasing squad points isn't, or increasing the score needed, isn't going to decrease the value of objectives. It will increase it because now you're saying in order to win, I need to really focus on objectives.
Yeah.
But I think it will increase the length of the game, which is if that's an issue, I think that's how you fix it really fast. Is
Yeah, I mean,
You know?
again, I'm not saying that like you can't have a short game. We've all in 2.0 we've had our short games. The games have ended really quickly, but like, should this be happening a lot? No, like we need at least 6 rounds. We would prefer to have 8-round games. Like a majority of the time, it's between 6 and 8. It's not sitting.
Remember
at
when they said
4.
12 was the cutoff, and everyone's like 12's too short.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, I played too fast, and I was over here thinking like there weren't going to be all these other things that were introduced, and I'm like, oh, I just played too fast. It's going to be, I could play, 18 rounds. Like now it's like you can barely hit 10. So it definitely changes my perspective on things.
So all the games I've watched on Nickel City X-Wing, almost everyone sets up all their ships across the board and moves straight forward the first turn. That is wrong. Like, we know that is objectively wrong. We're still doing it because we don't know how to play this game. As long as we still, as Greg said, do
Is it
17th
wrong?
century.
Maybe
Yes,
it's
it
not
is.
so wrong.
So Catherine played on stream the other night, and Catherine's way better at X-Wing than me, so I can't talk shit. I hope she's not watching. She took her FO list, her 6-ship FO list, and jousted against a B-Wing list that is much better jousting listener. Like, she set up across the board and moved straight. And it doesn't matter how well she set up, the fact that she lined up straight and moved straight, and her opponents lined up straight and moved straight, meant that the game was over. Even if she had impeccable dice, it wasn't going to happen.
But Andrew, how can you jockey for position when the objectives need to be claimed immediately? That's what's getting people to accelerate and go. Like, they have to set up that way to claim.
Yes, but if you too hard from the top of the objective scenario, you can grab your objectives.
Well, I mean, that depends on where everything's set up, I guess, too.
No, you get that setup that you need because you place one in your corner, and you, like, what is a toilet bowl? You start going here, and you start going here. I hope everyone can see my video. Like, that is the toilet bowl. You take your ace out in the diagonally, you bait them around, and then you go straight this way. Like, that is a classic engagement scenario, and you can grab your first 2 objectives. That means you're seeding the middle, which is a strategic decision you may have to make if you're not the joust. The fact that we are all just lining up and going straight means we're doing something wrong. Like the old adage, 2 people are jousting, one of them
It
is
definitely
doing
doesn't
wrong.
seem right. Like, it shouldn't be that way.
Everyone is just jousting.
If there was
Return.
if there was a little bit more to so if there was an opportunity for people to be able to let their opponent maybe get a couple more objectives, like whether it be more time or the objectives increase in value variably as the game goes on or whatever, then you'll start to see people start to jockey more like they used to with 2.0. But I still think right now that's their go-to is to set up and just shoots forward because they're like, I need to pounce on this and then I need to figure out how to pounce on my opponent.
Like, we already can tell that is wrong, and part of the reason that's wrong is because points aren't balanced. In a world in which points are balanced, it makes a lot more sense to not go for that center objective.
So it sounds like, I think we can all agree, at least so far, that the objectives are lacking and there needs to be more of a difference between them, and I think there needs to be a little bit, like, we keep kind of mentioning the center point of the mat, and that's what's bringing people together, is that there is that last, like, there's the third one that, like, that puts you over the edge. If you get that, claim that third one, that really puts you in an advantageous position. So it sounds like we need to kind of do one of the changes maybe that could be addressed is doing a little bit more to that center. Like, do you remove it? Do you move it? Do they move? I thought one cool idea would be that you start with some cargo, like precious cargo, on a couple of your ships, like, and those are the higher target priority ships, and you have to figure out ways to, like, keep them safe, and there's these different incentives, like how you interact with them or whatever. Like, the scenarios, I don't want to be mean, but they're like last night, for example. I didn't really talk about the game that I played last night, but my opponent called the game after 3 rounds, and I had Wedge and Luke with Pro Torps and Regen and a couple of A-Wings, and he wasn't building an optimized, net list. He wanted to try Oiken and some Strikers and some TIE Fighters and stuff, and I didn't have fun the entire time. I was like, that was a really boring game. And it was because I felt like it was exciting, like, as we started getting set up, and then I realized that, like, we both knew what was going to happen. I was going to get mine, he was going to get his, and then I was going to Alpha Strike his ships in the center because they can't go anywhere else because he wants to get the one in the middle. So what do you do with that middle objective? Like, how do you vary things a little bit? There's not enough variety still.
I want to completely disagree with you, Nick, as respectfully as I can. I think that it's our change in mindset needs to happen and not the game changing. That we need to say, hey, middle objective isn't as important as we are saying. Because if your choice is get the middle objective and get nuked, like that is your only trade-off, then you are playing the game the wrong way because you are not building yourself.
I'm going to push back on telling people that they're playing wrong, because if you win, you play the right way. Like,
no.
As long as you keep winning.
If you are not winning, and I'm not saying it's like not fun. Like, I'm saying play wrong. I'm saying to play in a way that is not most advantageous to your victory. Like, if you're here to win and your only goal is to win, you need to stop thinking the center objective is so important, because it's very clear that you can be out jousted or out alpha striked if you don't bring top jousting or top alpha strike list. Like, that's the same as it was in 2.0. If you didn't bring the list that is very good at something, you can't try to do that thing. So you need to figure out something else, and that may mean seeding that center objective.
So is it crazy for me, like, salvage mission? What if you remove the center? There are only 4, and you kept it 2 on both sides, and then it's about who takes the one from the other person. There's like, what does that do? Is that like not really anything? Is that lame, or like,
again? We need to shift our mindset to say the game is wrong, and we need to start saying we need to grow to understand the game.
I mean, I don't disagree with you. I just think that, like, people are going to build the list that is going to be able to just not care and fly straight forward, and then just decide, okay, like, the objective's here, I'm here, I'll take it, or okay, proton torpedo times 2 time, and just alpha strike a ship, and it's like, cool, that's
maybe
now I have
because
10
the B-wings are so
points.
cheap, they'll win. But at some point, those B-wings will become 6 points and not 5.
Or just they'll
won't
lose
be
the
good.
sensor slot, or they'll lose bombs or something. Like,
at some point, people will outpoint or out-strategize that list, and then things will change.
Yeah. All right, Pim, I haven't heard from you in a little bit.
I've just been enjoying the conversation, man.
Yeah.
I'm
I
vibing.
just want to give you guys both a shout out. It's been, what's nice is that we've all had a very unique perspective on things. I think we've been very, like, even keel and been fair with how we've assessed things so far. It's still really early, as Andrew said. Which Andrew? As Andrew Block said, it's about learning, and things are going to change. But for now, man, as long as you keep winning, you're doing something right. And I think it is on AMG in some way to try to formulate it in a small capacity. It's on them to make things a little bit more interesting with how people fly their ships. So maybe we introduce a new scenario, or you just maybe add a caveat, or like you add objectives as the game goes on. I don't know. There's all these different things you could do.
For what it's worth, I think this has made the game more interesting. While some people can say, like, hey, the game's a bit more boring because we're just going one straight into the objectives and everything, I think Andrew has a good point where he said, should we be doing that? Should we perhaps think about other things? Also, that, like, that objective setup is super important, and I think Turn Zero has become, again, twice as important as it was, if not more. Because now you're not just placing obstacles, you're placing objectives. You're trying to set up how you're going to go with that. I think this has added layers to the game that I do like, and I do think, like, now we have gone, even if they didn't change the list building. Let's say we still have list building, 200 points, all that stuff. It still would have changed how we approach the game, because 2.0 was a game in which we approached it saying, we want the most efficient upgrades possible on the most efficient ships. because odds are one extra ship is usually better than a bunch of upgrades, in most cases, which was good and it's fine. And like that's one way to build for the game. And I think that can become kind of stale after a while because it just becomes the same kind of thing of, okay, here's Hero Pilot 1, Hero Pilot 2, and here's the generic spam. Or, whatever list building became. I think these scenarios cause you to think about it differently. You're no longer thinking about what is the most efficient use of my points to get kills. It's now, what is my strategy in each of these 4 scenarios?
Yeah.
It's now not just pure kills. It's, do I have the ability to run away with the toe if I need to? If I have the crate and it's down to the wire and I have to hold on to this crate and my opponent needs to get it away from me, can I run away fast enough? Or can I put my ship out there and take a chance to scramble the sensor and not get immediately shafted because I whiffed and then a bunch of attacks are coming in and I don't have any way of getting passive mods or whatever, I think this has created new wrinkles that I think are kind of exciting.
Not all the doors might be open for that yet. Like we're knocking on some of them, and they just need to iron a couple things out. And then there's a lot more thinking that is done strategically.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's the thing I keep going back to with this system is it has introduced some interesting concepts. It needs ironing out and needs fine tuning, but I do think you can fine tune the system to get something as balanced as 2.0 was, and like that last 2.0 update and everything. I think we can easily get back to that point. We're gonna go through some growing pains.
And AMG, let's be honest, they've set themselves up for a lot of work ahead. This is something that they've chosen to do, so now they're gonna have to deal with a game that is getting harder to balance as more and more content comes out. And
power creep is true in any game.
Yeah. So, really quick, one last concern that I wanted to echo, and I'm really curious you guys this is something that kind of hit me the other day, last night as I was setting everything up, is that typically I know Pim, you and I complained at LVO about how you don't really get much time once pairings are announced to get to your table and set up and have dials down comfortably, right? Like you're usually rushing. So I'm very worried about Adepticon because once pairings are posted, you're going to need almost triple the amount of time that we got before to be able to get to your table, to now understand what your opponent's list is, because there's going to be more upgrades and more potential triggers. And then you need the random scenario is going to be picked, and you need to remember how that scenario works. There is uniformity in terms of setup, but you need to kind of remember that what exactly are you playing, and then you need to set everything up and set your dials. So I told Dio, and I'm just like, hey, we need to give people more time. I'm not saying that it's on him. However it works out, I'm sure it'll be okay. But I cannot imagine how stressful that would be if you only had 4 or 5 minutes to have your dials set with the way things are now. I'm curious what you guys think of that.
I think that's where the shorter rounds come into play, right? You get more time to set up, and then the round's a little shorter, and it works out to be the same time in the end.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I know, Andrew, you've been to a 2.5 event. You can kind of weigh in on that.
Yeah, how was that? How was that?
I mentioned at the top of the show, I was flying Luke, Leia, Ahsoka for a while. It was 7 cards, 200 points. I flew 6 ship rebels, and I had a blast at the tournament, but I hated my list. And that's kind of on me. That may be on all of us to fly something that brings you joy. I play a lot of Pathfinder, the tabletop RPG that's very complicated. And one of the things you try to say is, if it feels like homework, you're playing it wrong. You've chosen the wrong class, or you're doing the wrong thing, or what have you. And if X-Wing feels like homework to you, like you're rushing and you're stressed out, you can't get your list up in time, and maybe you've hit the point where just change your list. Maybe it's not optimal. And I know we're here to compete, but
that's a good point though. Yeah.
I've had a lot more fun at my local game shop playing 4 ships with a big base, even if it's probably worse. I did at Cherokee playing 6 ships because I thought that was better.
Yeah.
And so I'd say if you're stressing about that, maybe dial back the number. I mean, I don't know. I hate to say that because you're there to win, but
yeah. We can all agree that Rebels are going to be an obscenely high part of the
The B-Wings are
the
too
showing
cheap.
for
yeah.
Adepticon.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably going to be like, I'm guessing 60% of the field will be Rebels. Probably closer to
Rebels have
half.
so many
But-
options, and then Republic has so many cheap options.
Right. And the other
Anecdotally,
factions are really going to struggle for a bit.
A lot of people at Cherokee said they played what they were. They said, I played a list I've played before that I thought would also be good. And at Adepticon, hopefully that branches out to more things. And so a lot of people pick Rebels.
Yeah.
It's going to be a
Our
lot of
friends will
Rebels.
play Rebels.
It's going to be a lot of Rebels.
The
They're
B-Wings
by
are still too
far
good.
the strongest. And that's what sucks is like at Crossroads, I made top 16. I was one of 3 Rebel players in the top 16. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, you know, there was a lot of Republic. There was a lot of, there was some Scum. There was Empire. Like, you got good representation. And I felt like, even though Rebels are popular, I was like, there was maybe one Resistance list. I don't remember off the top.
No, there was no Resistance.
There was no. There was a lot of First Order though too. But I was like, oh, like kind of I felt unique. It felt unique. Like my list was unique, and I was like, but now people are gonna be like, oh, my Super Luke versus your Super Luke, or your Super Wedge versus my Super Sabine, and it's gonna be like a lot of like the same faces, the same few familiar faces, and a lot of Rebel players. So it'll be fascinating. I'm excited to judge. I'm excited that I'm not playing because I get to see this unfold. And it's gonna be a shit show. So I'm very much happy to sit this one out.
It's the first points with a new system. It's gonna be screwy for a while.
Right.
It's the same, you know. Again, like you go back to early 2.0 and you see some of the ridiculousness that was happening back then. You're like, oh yeah, this isn't a 2.5 problem. This is a new game mode problem.
Hot takes right now. What list is going to win Adepticon?
Oh, Trajectory Simulator B-Wings.
Can you fit Luke in a couple of those and like in a 4th ship?
I think all the B-Wings are 5. So
and Luke
no.
is 7, so you could fit a 3-point ship.
Yeah, so like what? Hobby?
Shara.
He's easier.
Just go with Shara. And she's like, I'm obsessed with Shara because she's so cheap now.
Shara's
It's like
ready.
one of
She's
the
ready.
cheapest options. Shara's ready. Awesome. All right, you guys. So really quick, I do want to give away a couple of the January's cards before I forget. So, in honor of us being gone for so long and finally being back, I have 3 of them and I just dropped 1. So I'll be giving away 3 of these. Our January's cards, pretty nifty, and Jan is not so bad these days. I'm going to bribe the $1 per point of Adepticon, so basically I'm giving you $20 per end. I mean, that's not bad. It'll be nice to see you again, man. Even though you're literally the worst. All right, so all you need to do to have a chance to win the Jan, I'm gonna do a keyword for this one. It's gonna be 312. Just type 312. Give you guys a second to do that. But yeah, I mean, and the other thing too, the other question I have is like, if as they add more scenarios, do they take some out of? There should be a rotation because I think it would be really confusing if there was like 10 different scenarios that you
do it like most, you know, like any video game with a competitive mode will have a map rotation, right? Same thing. Just have scenario rotations. It'll be good.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to say is like going off of like what's going to win Adepticon. With the way everything works out right now, any kind of thing that's like a toolkit list with like, you know, 4 to 6 ships that can kind of operate semi-independently, but also, you know, can help each other be better. That's what's good right now, and that's what Rebels have always done best. So I think that if you bet on them to win Adepticon, you have a good chance of making that money back.
Oh, there's your corgi. Beautiful dog. What's the name of your dog again?
This is Mr. Whalen. He's very grumpy.
Mr. Whalen, very grumpy. Oh. Corgi! Deslin's into it. Yeah, type 312, guys. You want a chance to win one of these Jan Awards. I got 3 of them given out tonight.
I will say I got a lot of compliments on the Anakin card I brought to the game shop the other week.
Oh, the 312 one? Nice. Yeah, I felt proud of myself. My key art direction was I want buzz droids flying off of his ship. Yeah, Drew did a good job.
I wasn't going to be outdone. I brought my own dog.
Nice. I have my cat somewhere, but they're not dogs, so can't really.
I like the cats. I like when the cats show up on the
Yeah,
on the
my
bed.
cats have great personalities. What type of dog is that, Pim?
It's a Cocker Spaniel poodle mix.
Oh,
His name is Wedge.
love it.
Good boy.
Is he Initiative 6?
In my heart, he is.
All right, let's do these Jan cards. So, oh boy, Reinik Nurgendwu. So sorry, I know I didn't say that correctly, but exclamation point win. DeRoche, Corin, you win 1, and Sammy wins 1. Sweet. Exclamation point win. Please fill out your address info for me. All right, you guys. Well, I'll leave you with this. It's gonna be tough. Just bear with it. Try to have fun. Honestly, just have a casual mindset until you go if you're going to Adepticon or an actual tournament. But be casual about it. You're gonna have to try things and probably gonna lose a decent amount of games because you don't know if the list is good until you play with it. So it's kind of starting over, hitting the reset button. I do want to say for those of you that really do prefer to play X-Wing 2.0, I do have a part of our server called X-Wing Legacy. You just need to react the pinned post in the general chat, and I will give you the role. And we might do a league for that at some point too. So I want to make sure that everybody that plays the game, I don't want to see people leave. So if I'm given the option to lose a couple of fingers on my hand or lose the entire hand, I'm going to pick lose a couple of fingers. So I want to be able to keep people around. I don't want to just...
lose a whole hand and you're going to like it.
You're going to like it. And it's a safe space. Anybody that is not assigned that role cannot talk in those channels. So just keep that in mind if you really are not interested in playing in this. And look, I understand there are a lot of things with this that I don't like, but I'm not gonna quit. I'm just gonna deal with it. I might not play in any more tournaments. That's a whole nother thing, but we'll see. But yeah, be sure to check that out. Thank you all. Andrew, thank you both for being here. It's been a pleasure. I love being able to talk to you guys. And honestly, it would be nice to be able to do this more often. So let's get some games in as well at some point. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your night. We'll be back tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Central and 8:30 for more list chaos with the new rules, with the new list building. And I hope to see you there. We're going to try to hit our NW Vader goal. We'll have a bunch of giveaways. Enjoy the rest of your night. Have a great weekend. And I will see you all tomorrow. Adios.